This conference will now be recorded.
All right. I'll forego the chairman's remarks and move right into hearing from our mayor. And really, I think to frame this a little bit, from our perspective, we're just kind of concerned about the economic development and the businesses downtown with what's going on in the parking garage. So just trying to understand what the vision is short-term and long-term and how we can support and help where we might be going with that.
Sure, appreciate that. And of course, I've got Greg here, city administrator, answer any question that I stumble on, promise you. So we took down, or rather we closed the 3 tiers of the parking garage. We anticipated closing the upper level. And when the council determined that they wanted to have that upper level reopened, and we took a better look at the ramps, we realized that in fact all 3 levels had to be closed. Expected that we would probably be closing that 1 level and we'd be able to accommodate without much of an issue. In closing all 3 levels, not anticipated, we wound up in a scenario where typically out of a 450, 460 spot garage, we might have a couple of hundred people using it fairly regularly. So we need to accommodate those couple of hundred spots. So we found Greg, really was the one that did the work on that, found spots which we marked off on Market Street and additionally opened up D Street lots beyond where they were, spots as well on Chestnut Street Extension, cumulatively looking at approximately 100 spots. So that then combined with some entrepreneurial businesses who've opened up their parking lots to permit parking and others that actually just offered their parking lots, more or less accommodated the need for those spots that were in the parking garage that we hadn't anticipated losing. So what we've done in the interim is looked at additional availabilities of parking, most specifically for the concerns of overflow. We've got, for instance, a 3-on-3 basketball tournament this Saturday. The expectation is that we will wind up with a lot of people downtown. We are, there's the board on Main you may have heard about.
We're a little familiar with it.
They'll be adding 22, is it?
23.
23
Yep.
Units. The D Street lofts will be 80% occupied at the end of August, and as a total of I think 64 units. So there'll be some additional stress put on the parking that we have. However, as it stands right now, if you roll into Oneonta, you will find parking on Main Street. Typically, we'll have 15 or 20 come through and count. I do the availabilities of spots on Main Street. 15 is pretty standard. In the D Street lots, you'll find dozens upon dozens open most of the time. That's what we've done is we've designated a lot of our parking as 24 hours. That which is closest to our Main Street Business District has we've gone to 1, 2, and in the case of a few spots over on the D Street lofts, 4-hour parking. I just brought around a survey to 40 of the merchants yesterday, asking if they would be inclined to move the 1-hour parking on Main Street to 2-hour parking, Main Street and some of the off streets, to give people a little bit more time to be able to shop and dine without feeling like they were unnecessarily constrained. One of the issues that we had one council member think that is actually a positive, but I look at it as being systemic of an example of maybe a larger issue was that in fact we have 15 or 20 spots on Main Street. That's I think an indicator that people are concerned that 1 hour is not going to do it for them. So we'll see what the emergence say. I'll be picking up those surveys today, but I'd be very surprised if they don't turn that into 2-hour. In the long term, so what we're doing right now is we're running, because of the Cooperstown All-Star Village, where we've done a tremendous amount of outreach, and we've got an extremely, I think, solid relationship with Abbott, the CEO over there, who's doing everything he can to assist us. We've put together an engagement marketing committee that's most specifically geared toward bringing those families into the city of Oneonta. What we have instituted about a month or so ago. It's a shuttle program. It's a free shuttle every 10 minutes. It runs from Damasco Field and loops through the park to Main Street and then down to Market Street back into the park. It's a free park and ride. It's a loop of every 10 minutes. Yesterday, we actually had, there's a tree falling in the forest sort of scenario. It took a little while for some brochures to get printed up. Finally got those out. Yesterday, we had a video done by Single Media on the bus, on the shuttle bus, which with, if you see it, please share it with a little bit more education to the community at large and certainly to the baseball camps. Hopefully we'll start to see a lot more usage of that. And of course, that's a great thing. We bring people downtown that carry to a park for 24 hours or whatever length of time they might want during the day. And we've got them for the numbers of hours that they may want to be there. You probably noticed that Muller Plaza is a space that had been underutilized. We've decided that we need to throw our focus there over the course of these next couple of months yet to engage the community in the overall and the Cooperstown All-Star Village families most specifically in finding a place where they can kind of be congregate in downtown and kind of have a leisurely point of a destination point to spend some time. That's actually grown organically and that holds, I think, a lot of potential. In the Damasky Field and just adjacent parking lot, we can accommodate about 200 and change vehicles, which as we start to move into the winter season gives us some hope for the fact that we'll be able to accommodate cars that we may need to move in an emergency for snow off the streets. So there's that, and we do know that the shuttle service works, although we also know that the shuttle service is expensive. So and we also have a staffing issue around that. So we get to the point where the colleges are back in session, we'll wind up barring something unforeseen, shutting that down. But in the meantime, we'll build some muscle memory around that. I've brought some brochures for you guys. They have a similar look because I'll tell you quite honestly, I was in a hurry, but they work. These have been distributed to all the hotels in the area and to the Cooperstown All-Star Village. One is specific to the shuttle service and a larger map of downtown's parking, and the other one is something that people asked where I was on Memorial Day weekend at the speech and a parade on the outside. I was illustrating maps. So you can pass those around and keep those. If you'd like more, we have more. And those are, quick indicators of where all the parking is. Greg, anything I missed?
Probably just what the plan is with the parking garage long term.
Yeah.
Can I ask you short term though, these extra spots that you've added, is that something you're looking to do long term, or is that just more of a short term until you can come to?
That'll be permanent.
Permanent, okay.
Part of our DRI project, Market Street is streetscape improvements. That'll probably end up being just from Main to about City Federal Credit Union. We'd like to go the whole way, but I think funding levels are going so far now. But we'll incorporate some curb bump outs and things. Parking will remain the way it is, even all the way down to the park.
Okay.
There's really no reason for those lanes to be as wide as they were.
Yeah.
And relative to the parking garage, right now, that is something we're taking through a number of common council meetings, which actually coincides with the budget discussion. So we've got some busy council agendas, but the council will be making determinations on what exactly our transit hub / parking garage looks like, what its footprint looks like, numbers of cars, its configuration, all of that. We have a pretty good idea, and I would even say that we probably will be politicking or recycle for a certain kind of configuration, but ultimately there are 8 people who have a vote and I don't. But that will be, so you can watch the newspapers, I guess, and that will, and of course, obviously, all that's reported, that will be going on the next couple of months. On August 15th, we have a conversation most specifically geared to the use or not of Stella Luna's parking lot. This is something that we believe we already addressed, but there were a couple of hundred signatures off of petitions, and from my mindset. You get a couple hundred signatures on petitions, you open that back to discussion. So that will be taking place on August 15th.
Okay. Yes, just a question.
Sure.
How long is short term? For your short term solution, how long is that?
Yeah, actually, that's a good question. It's going to be, Greg can talk more specifically about, the timelines, but I can say generally, we're talking several months before we begin a deconstruction of the garage at 27 Market Street, and then the garage as the board sales building. We're looking at the end of my term. I'm done the last day of 2025 before we think that we've got something built in its place. So that's a while. And so we're just, as long as I'm pouring cold water on things, there will be paid parking. There just isn't any option around that. The city sees its tax base is 47% of property owners. We can't tax our way to being able to pay for the things we need as we move forward. No matter what really the scale of what we're looking at is, we are, I think, both conservatively and not estimating about a $10 million bond. We'll see what the council winds up looking at in terms of its total configuration of things, but it's still a reasonable guess that we'll wind up somewhere around that. We can't pay for a $10 million bond without some income stream that we currently don't have. The good news is, show me a municipality of any consequence that doesn't have to pay parking, so there's plenty of precedent, but also it will allow us to be kind of constructive around our use of the availability of parking. So in other words, parking that's most closely connected to the retail and restaurants will be something that is more controllable by virtue of cost. It may be very inexpensive to roll in, it may might be very expensive to stay there. So we can control the flow of and not have people who are parking 8 and 10 hours a day in front of sometimes their own businesses. So there's this, and the nice thing I can say is that as I've gone around and I visit with everybody, people are now, the narrative is taking hold after a couple of months of talking about this. Most people anticipate, there will be a paid parking piece coming into it, and then a lot of the concession run pitchforks and torches is probably been diminished. So anybody who's looking to open up that retail store, I would say that business model may not work. But bottom line of it is people are starting to understand what we're dealing with, and we'll be dealing with it for a while. When 27 Market Street comes down, the odds are we'll be able to use that lot for some length of time. Again, there are a lot of things in play. We'll see what happens, but that's our expectation, and that we probably might get 100 cars into that, or 75 cars, or something like that. Conservatively take that deal. Yeah, and I'm negotiating continually with any. When you take an elevated look at the surface parking in Oneonta, you see an awful lot. There's a ton of surface parking. But it's not the cities. So I'm in negotiations and conversations with a lot of the commercial entities, and we'll be having conversations with members of the churches as well. We're looking at putting together a web app that provides people with a little bit more information that's timely about availabilities and some of the stipulations that some of those property owners might have about when there's lots to be used.
While you're doing the deconstruction of parking garage and the Ford building, is that going to affect more parking spots, right? I mean, while you're going through construction, that's going to take more away in those moments, I'm assuming.
Yeah, some of the ones we've added along Market Street, obviously. So, Chestnut Street extension, right? A few less there. 27 Market Street, assuming that goes forward, that should be demolished this fall. Parking garage by this time next year will be completed. April, May next year.
The demolition will have been
Demolition will be done, yeah.
You probably know it's bid for bids for demo.
So 27 Market Street, we're looking to potentially use a cooperative. Then hopefully bid previously, but Sourcewell or HVAC, there's just different public cooperatives. Pricing that we can utilize. So it wouldn't be.
What was it that I saw on the page with regard to?
There may have been an I'm not sure what's gone on. For the park garage?
Yeah, I thought it was parking garage. Noted your architectural firms or engineering, and who would be the contractor, manager of that project.
Okay.
So I thought like a full page in the back of the daily star.
Yeah, that'll be bid available.
That's what
on August 4th. That'll be public bid. Not a
Let me just ask a technical question because we went from a parking garage that was open to one that was closed.
Mhm.
I'm just curious about the engineering inspections. We all know that buildings like that, concrete beams with steel support inside, have a life expectancy. What were your engineering studies saying like 5 years ago? Because there was a lot of planning that took place, including the Ford lot, making that available. It was even a major part of the D Street lots. What was the engineering study saying that just
So 2011 was last time we did some major rehabilitation there. We did structural steel, sandblasting, repainting, replaced a few beams and columns that needed replacement. At that time, those repairs were to get us another 10 years or so. First started the DRI project, the firm that initiated the analysis. I love it. Doing the detailed structural testing and concrete, that sort of thing that eventually was done, which revealed the extent of concrete replacements needed. So at that point, the answer was, yeah, you can fix it, you can repair it, but there's no detailed quantification of how much, what's the extent that's needed. And we got to that level, which was essentially last summer. $16 million. Knock it down, build one that's the appropriate size. If you build a garage, so 2 deck, 2 level, which would be much less expensive, 6.5, 7. So really, it was understood that significant, extensive repairs were needed, but the exact extent of that detail constructive. At that point, financial decisions that cost.
And we've exhausted all the engineering theories of extension. There's no possible way we can make it refurbish it for less money and by another 10 years, and the devastation of downtown economy is going to be tragic. And by 5 years, usually 5 years to plan. People are still paying their bills in the meantime.
Yeah,
I mean, we have enough engineering insight from enough people with different ideas to know, to be sure. I'm sure it's a safe decision. Are there other decisions that I'd like to quantify risk a little bit here? We can't buy time for.
To do that, the expense would be, you really need to do that full.
You've had the engineering studies from different perspectives that confirm.
Well, we have our engineering result, which is.
We haven't asked anybody else.
Yeah.
Anybody good at this? I use consultants who solve problems that other people don't see it solved. So there's no other. Before you knock this down and pursue a $10 or $15 million, if you do build it, 2/3 the size that it is, have we exhausted every thing we can with every engineering insight? Not every, but more than one. Is that
Stan Tech was the original engineer that looked at the project. Again, they didn't go into super detail. That was the DRI strategic investment plan. They looked at the overall. Neither of those firms have gone depth of study and design. It's not typical for the city to progress an engineering study and plans to a certain point and turn around and do a fair try. I think I'm confident in the consultant.
Well, I'm sure what you're going to do will be safe and work. Is there something less or different, costless we can do? That's, Troy, I'm a sucker for door B. I like to see what all my choices are. It's like you made your decision to do it and then decide what it's going to cost. You might roll this backwards. It's just me.
So it sounds like you're.
Yeah, I think the cost is more driving the decision of what we're going to do, to be honest with you. And one of the concerns is the short, in fact, that's what our council was originally looking at, it's a short-term patch. Let's get that third level open up again and idea of what kind of impact that might be having on businesses. I would argue that the impact on local businesses,
That's what debating.
debate. I would debate with you the point that the local businesses are being impacted by anything more than a narrative that I think we are standing right now, which is that there isn't any parking, because in fact we have enough parking at the moment. And we are making some progress with that. One of the things, in fact, that we've done in terms of trying to, be connected to that local economy in a positive way is, in fact, that shuttle. What we wound up doing is getting 20 merchants on board for something that those folks who took the shuttle, get a little indicator of the fact that they had, and they get discounts. So that's one more way. So we'll look for any number of different ways that we might be able to help our business sector. And I tell people as occasionally we'll have a debate about this, about a conversation I had with the mayor of Fairport by Rochester, where they lost their bridge. They had a lift bridge that had the same issue of maintenance, and they needed to close that lift bridge down, and they thought they'd have that lift bridge in the up position for about 400 days. The lift bridge actually separates. It's the connector between their Main Street East and their Main Street West. And so that lift bridge was actually for almost 2 years. And that cut off the Main Street proper from everybody, outside of going down 20 miles and finding another route in. And they all work together, and you can't shoehorn another business into Fairport at this point. So this, relative to losing a bridge that connects Main Street, is, I think, a smaller issue by anybody's standards. So we will, as a community, we will address the economic impact of this. And in terms of, we don't have the money to begin with. We are, the city is understaffed and underfunded.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of let's patch this for a while, knowing that the thing's 50 years old now, approximately, and there is a lifespan to things. So we might, in a scenario where we do find an easier way to get there, a cheaper way to get there, we're still probably getting there for another 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So we're kicking the can down the road for somebody else to deal with.
Well, not for that, so much as a time to plan strategically and, get everybody ready, so we have a plan and a step 1, step 2, step 3, and as opposed to shutting it down and all of a sudden we don't make our best decisions when we're under pressure. In my mind.
It sounds like the bottom line is that hiring $4 or $5 million bill is going to 4 or 5 years doesn't make a lot of sense.
But we will very much appreciate and welcome any thoughts, any suggestions that this group or any of the folks that you deal with in the rest of your hours and days may have, or how we can get from here to there. Because we quite honestly don't have a choice. We have to get from here to there.
I think it's an interesting situation because you have 3 different kind of groups you have to cater to, and each will have each of the parking plans will resonate differently, right? And my fear is what I'm hearing right now is the biggest group that might be alienated is just more the locals. I'm going to speak personally, like I don't like to come downtown right now because I don't know where I might have to park, right? I had to park essentially next to Stella Luna's to go to Fiesta one day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we've got a good plan with the shuttle system to advertise for the summer for the baseball families. It seems like the colleges will be somewhat catered to with their own transportation system, but once they're down here and back into the apartments, or we have additional people in the apartments, it seems like the biggest people that will be hurt from it is going to be those locals, and hopefully it doesn't affect the businesses to any great extent. But that seems to be maybe the one population center that we might need a little bit more of a permanent versus, oh, you can park in this lot from 8 to 10 and this lot from 12 to 2. How do you get some consistency for those that are here year round?
So we will be, so there are a couple of things we're trying to do, trying to get some traction. One is that if you're familiar with the gas study, where people have report on the lowest price gas at the FFC, it's crowdsourced. Looking to do something similar with 9 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and 5 p.m. availabilities in and around, only up to downtown.
And that kind of information that's posted to an app or web app, something pretty easily accessible to folks, will help. But one of the things, and it's also going to be good information for us, obviously, as we strategically plan. So one of the things that we'll want to do is stay on top of where our most congested areas are relative to people's desire to park. For instance, I can tell you that if you're trying to park in the city of Oneonta Westcott lot, it's always going to be your worst option. So how do we start to strategize around that? What kind of wheeling and dealing do I need to do with some of the commercial properties that have expansive, sections of asphalt that, quite honestly, you look at a couple of banks, no one banks in person anymore. So there are some options around some of this, those big conversations. But those will be informed, I think, by the usage. And then, to your point, I'm sorry to sound like this, but walking a block and a half or 2 blocks to get to where you want to get needs to wind up becoming the mindset that if you don't see the place that you want to shop at or dine at, within the sight of your parking spot, that's actually okay.
Fine in the summer. Fine when the weather's nice. And I think, again, an elderly population, I'm fine walking, right? But if I'm taking my grandmother out, she's 90 years old, she's not walking with me.
And that aging in place population, we just had a survey done for our housing commission, senior housing work group, and so we have an aging population in their intention for aging. So you're 100% right, catering, understanding the needs of the demographics and how you adjust for those. So this will be something where we'll be trying to stay one step ahead of.
My concern is we live in a competitive world. It always will be. It's big cyclical kind of civilizations. There's always competition. There's always other places to go. And I deal with it every day, making sure we're trying to do the best we can. And if it's easy and it's what they normally do, human behavior is repeatable. Once we have a behavior pattern, we do the same thing. I go here, park here, go here. Now, if it's interrupted, and I'm saying you have to get through this and everything else.
Sure.
But because there's a way to handle it, it's one thing. Making that way choice that people want to make is a challenge in marketing. And if it's easier to go somewhere else and drive up front and walk inside, that merchant loses that retail traffic.
Right.
And that's no, humans are right. That's how we're built. Right. Making it as easy as we can. I know you got a lot to do, and I'm not don't take this. I think everything's wrong. It's a challenge.
Yeah.
But,
and I was talking with a reporter yesterday about the questions asked. Well, why would anybody shop downtown when the parking, is? I would argue it's not more difficult.
Presumed to be.
Presumed to be that's the narrative. So why would they shop downtown? And my answer to him is that folks will shop at the box stores. They will shop on Amazon. They will come downtown if the downtown experience is in fact experiential. If there's a reason to come downtown because you're experiencing something that you couldn't find on the South Side, that's really where we need to. And I think there's a consensus among folks who are operating businesses and folks that are buying into downtown as landlords, that having downtown become something that people are attracted to, with the experience of being downtown is really, our way.
Yes.
Let me just get back to the park garage for a second. Timing is everything in life.
Mm-hmm.
And you're dying at the parking garage, becoming mayor. It's not great. But then they've done that, I should say, but there's a lot of confusion about what the plans are. I understand it's financially based. There's been no final decision on what the replacement would be. Is that correct?
Final decision, no.
Yeah, that's correct. So we don't know what we're looking at down the road.
What we're designing right now that will be going to bid unless the council decides to spend additional money that I don't have to believe that we can afford is a surface all parking lot.
What about my concern is that the plan for the apartments across the street and was the elevator, which is a great thing because for an aging population, I'm leaving town on that, by the way. getting up to Main Street is a problem.
Yeah, stairs tower and the elevator would still be, is still in the
But
plan.
how do you go from the first level of what used to be the parking lot up to Water Street? That's my
So
question.
you have an elevator there, right where that stairs tower is now, and the elevator's been used in decades.
Okay, so you read,
Yeah.
recondition, okay, that answers my question.
So I vote for knocking down the stairwell. We will have an elevator in the board block building in our pass-through that will take from that bottom Water Street floor up to the Main Street. And that's going to be accessible to people, it'll be open to people, and then you don't have that horrendous stairwell and do that. That would provide the accessibility, and it would also provide the in all kinds of weather, safer, cleaner environment, and save you a ton of money in maintenance and oversight. And that's something I hope really that you look at, because having now spent more time than I want to in the parking garage and around that looking at the investment that Springbrook has made in that building. And if you look at the back of the building, it's the most beautiful building in the world. It is just magnificent. And I see that pass through, if that's going to remain there, it's ugly. It's not from our apartment buildings, but it's ugly. It'll be maintained, and we have an interior elevator that will take people to Main Street. So please think of that, because I think it'll be safer and it'll be more accessible than an outside one, and save you money at that time. And I think, you know what, I think Tom is saying, and Dave is saying, you have a problem with perception and reality. And that is something that is felt in, you know, asking very informally the people who are our tenants in Ford on Main, they saw a 15% drop in their business when the parking. And again, perception is reality. Back to what you're saying. I'm thinking about, I could go somewhere else. I could open up my iPad and order on Amazon. I can get that book. So they're seeing that 15%. And I think the other issue is a confidence in decision making. The parking garage has been talked about for the last 10 years. We went into that building with an assurance and a vision, and again, there's no blame here. It's just kind of what happened, that would be available and accessible to our tenants. And our investment in that building was an investment in OEM. And that's my concern, is that confidence is diminished. And when that confidence is diminished, frankly, we probably would not have bought that building 2 years later. We just wouldn't have, with a parking garage, with the impact it's going to have on our building, with our engineers saying, you've got to be really concerned about the way they're taking that down because of the impact on a wood structured building. That's what our building is, with that demolition. So it's confidence. And when we looked at that, we really said, there's a vision, there's the parking garage, there's a next step. What we were hoping that would happen, would that be, and we talked about this, Mark, that other people would be saying, all right, well, Springbrook did it. Other people would do it. Well, it still is the hope, but what I'm saying is we were very invested in this, and our board very invested in it, and they still are. It's a beautiful building. We're very excited about it, but we're really, really anxious about the short, long-term plan and the confidence in the next step, because people have to have confidence in that next step. And if they have confidence in that next step, they'll put up with a lot of disruption. But if they don't have confidence in that step and assurance in that next step, then you're going to be hearing people. And I'll give a brief example of being in Portland. We just opened an office in Portland. I went there, I thought I was in the Wild West. The entire downtown is, I don't even know what they're doing, but it's really dust storms and excavators, and they had us going back and forth, and I was like, oh my, you were in your Wild West? I thought it was in the Wild West. I was inappropriately attired for this. But all the businesses were open. I was at a restaurant, they were outside, I ate more dust than I did food, but there was a feeling of, I have confidence in what's happening. I'm going to be with it because the product is there. So that is something that I'm concerned about from this board's perspective, for an owner downtown, and for Leon's future, frankly.
So I'm going to address that real quick. But yeah, I absolutely hear you and couldn't agree more. What we've been doing relative to parking from the get-go, even before we realized that we were going to need to take down or close the parking garage, to put together a task force of folks, and this is not typical, that included downtown retailers, downtown business owners, rather building owners, restaurateurs, and other folks that could bring something to the game that it wasn't typical, with the expectation, and this worked, as I said, the narrative is changing, that they've gone out and more or less been disciples for the word, and then they felt much more, as they should, that they've been part of that decision making. The slow walk that I'm overseeing of this through council is something that is intentional and is being promoted, so that people get a sense that there is good governance happening here, and that there is a level of transparency and communication that can give people confidence. It's not lost on me. Again, I didn't run for mayor of the idea that maybe we'd be dealing with parking issue or taking. I think I might have reconsidered that as well. But the reality of it is, this is what we have, and we succeed if we get everybody kind of singing off the same sheet music, and I feel like we are making progress toward that. The narrative 2 months ago was that there is no parking, and even some of the business owners that are folks that are your tenants were party to that, letting they were bemoaning the fact that there's no parking and they're going to go out of business, and that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so as people are being educated around the impact of their words and the strategies that we're employing and the transparency that we're committed to, I think that some of the concerns that you just voiced there are not that it's a light switch, but that we are absolutely in the right direction. We need to.
I brought that up because I think it's really, really important for people in the community to know about the plans to have that elevator working, which means you go park in the lower level, take an elevator up, you can then get on the elevator in the Ford building and go up to Main Street. That's a huge, big deal for older people, and it makes sense, I think. And it's kind of news to me. I don't know whether it's been mentioned in council meetings or not, but if that's sort of like the base plan at this point, I think it'd be really important to let people know that there will be access to Water Street, for people with walkers,
It's very important. They've been in a lot of places. And so
Yeah.
that may have been in places up there for a heartbeat, but not something that got a lot of attention.
Yeah,
So I think that's
And for your future vision being, is it flexible enough, the plan, that you have the ability to add a second level? Obviously this is about meeting demand currently. If you're looking at potentially bringing in additional tenants, additional apartments, additional commercial space, is there flexibility for that future to allow for a second layer, a second level to that?
That's
Or is it
actually, that's what we're politicking for.
Okay.
It's not politicking for is a 2-level garage. And with what we hope will wind up some development above it that provides roof because of that development. But a 2-level garage that doesn't wind up with ramps, so because you'll be accessing it off of Water Street on one and Market Street on the other. So without the ramps, it gives you that many more parking spaces. And so that's
But it doesn't sound like that's what you're going
plan A.
to get, right? So the idea being is if you don't get that and you do get the 1 level, is that 1 level being designed to the point where it's easy enough to add a second level and it won't be too disruptive, or has that kind of already in mind, or you have to start back from scratch?
I mean, there won't be foundations installed.
That's what I was okay, yeah.
Ready to be built with this service.
Really, you're going to make a decision to build what you decide to build. Whenever you do it, it'll be 1 or 2 before you start digging.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, you could always come back years later.
And
whenever,
you start again.
Close it
Yeah.
for
Put a
your
foundation in.
Yeah.
Not a problem. My concern really is and I know you're talking to people, but leaders and dealers at home. The sooner there's a vision that's verbalized and out there of what the final product is, and say, yeah, it's tough now, but 24 months or 30, whatever it is, this is what we're gonna have, and it's gonna get better someday. When we're sitting here on go and everybody's questioning and nobody's clearly, I'm going up over the hill, follow me, we're just treading water. It's not a good place for a public to be.
Yeah.
So the sooner we can get a clear, complete vision, and test it, see what's going. You're going someplace. Right now,
It's a good point. And to put it in, it's a very good point. And to put it in perspective though, it seems like we've been dealing with this forever. But in fact, we closed the garage 2 months ago, a month and a half. So it just feels like.
Well,
forever.
yeah, but also.
But it's been talked about.
Yeah, well, that's
It
exactly.
has been
Yes.
talked about forever, and I think that's part
You
of,
know,
it was just
absolutely-
brought up but it
It was a
has been
surprise, but
many different visions, I was part of the DRI to begin with, and it was just a lot of different visions. And I agree with Tom.
But in terms of our finding ourselves to that clear path that we can then be promoting, that's kind of the trajectory we're on right now. And on one hand, I want to have this, from my position, I want to have this done and something that I can provide that level of information on. I also know that it's important that the council, ultimately, or the decision makers are not pushed into a decision that may wind up being consequential.
I call it leadership.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But the bottom line of it is we need to.
Remember, any decision made by a council is less efficient than made by one person. So
Yes.
Yeah,
You can't
you know,
buy.
let me introduce you to our, let me introduce you to our short committee. Yeah. But in any event, we'll move this along because we are moving quickly as it can be, and we are engaging folks so that they see what the process is and feel that level fine. But as soon as, and the expectation is more sooner than later, we have ourselves a solid plan. We promote health.
So Mark, you threw out a number of, a bond number, 10 million.
Mhm.
What was anticipated as included if you needed to bond for 10 million? What is that?
Greg, I'll let you.
So the DRI project includes whether it's a parking garage or a parking lot. Right now, that's the parking lot with the stair tower, the demolition, relocating high site electric, which is $1.5 million in itself.
It just, I guess, just generally, just layman, does it mean leveling everything and having a single level? That's the 10
Everything
million?
Single level.
On
plus
Market
the
Street.
Streetscape improvements on Market Street, so new curb sidewalk, basically a new street, not all utilities, but on Market Street from Main to City Federal.
Mhm.
And then eliminating the Water Street extension ramp, that's part of that demolition, the retaining wall work related to the demolition, Water Street being redone as well. That's
Which probably, no matter what, that's gonna happen. That's the kind of a minimum.
that kind of has to
That has to happen.
Well, suppose you could not do the Market Street streetscape, but the issue is you get different funding sources. There's a funding source that specifically the Market Street.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, I'm pragmatic, right? I'm trying to back into the debt service to $10 million bond.
I would like to follow up on that because you said you need a new revenue source in order to pay off that $10 million.
Yeah, they don't have,
So if you can share with us, are you looking at other revenue sources?
he wants to charge for parking, is
Yeah,
what they said.
parking is.
And I'm trying to back into what you have to charge for parking to debt service $10 million. And it's,
that's a lot.
rudimentary math ain't gonna happen.
It's less than you might think it is. If you're looking at it, I've done the quick math on it. If you're looking at 500 cars over the course of a day, which is a reasonable and probably low number, you're looking at $3 on the average that a car the cost of parking might be for that particular car.
So you're talking about paid parking in the new space, the level space,
Down,
Everywhere.
throughout every other space in town.
Yeah, down throughout downtown.
Okay.
But again, it's not like we don't have precedence for that.
Well, let me say, you can be right. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Well, consumer choice,
That's right.
it's.
You need to- and so-
I'm not envying where you are, I know.
Right.
You need to give the consumers a reason to choose.
100%.
Which gets back to the experience, which has other issues.
Right. Which, again, I could take a couple of hours with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with the additional of potentially 100 new cars downtown, living downtown, what is our plan for those 100 new cars? Hopefully they're 24, we're hopefully November for leasing our apartments. And I don't know when the other apartments are online, but I think it's around the same time, Paul.
Right now, I mean, I think it's in that pamphlet. So, yeah, we have the bigger map, more detailed map.
Yes.
So there's a map of all the parking spaces, different hourly time limits, and where 24-hour all-day parking is. That's where those tenants would be designated to park.
But you'd go from what you anticipate, is your question, you go from what you anticipate as free parking? To
Oh, yeah.
now, your time.
Yeah, we're looking at a lot of 24-hour parking, and that'll continue for a while. And that's 24-hour parking.
Here's where I think we are and why we're where we are, and it's no, we're looking for opportunities to get better out of sense of fall. Okay, we're here, we are because we have turnovers in administration, we don't have planning, we don't have 5 years, 10 years. I mean, some money put away for the garage. We've known for years that someday this day is coming, right? And I think there really isn't enough planning and preparation to have a fund balance target. And we go to big markings, they've done it 5 years ago, begin to get the money again. I mean, this is, if we're not to look ahead, we keep getting surprised. Deer in the headlights, not a good look.
Right. And of course, we can't do anything about what happened
You can't
yesterday.
fix yesterday, but moving forward, whether this or the next thing, I still need to be looking forward and always anticipating things are changing. And remember, smart people adjust.
Mhm.
We gotta keep adjusting.
And that's right, we have to
Just
say
not set and forget.
one step ahead,
Well,
and
know, and-
being ready to negotiate around whatever's no good. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, again, thank you for joining us today, and I think we probably could spend a ton of time. I mean, I think that the concern from this area is from this team, and there's some personal interest and vested interest in some of the stuff, but I think, the idea is having the foresight to understand what is the strategic development we're looking for downtown, and then how do we align the parking strategic direction with that? Because even just looking at Patricia here, there's no way her tenants are parking anywhere that have 24-hour capabilities. So if there's no strategic vision on what do we want the downtown to be, and then how do we align the parking with it? I know this is somewhat short term, but I think that's where I get concerned in that confidence of decision making, say, this is what we're looking to do strategically with our downtown, and here's how the parking will support that. For the long term, I think is where I would love to see a plan or an ultimate plan. I know it seems like it's being driven by money right now, and I can completely understand that, but it does feel like we're kind of operating under the gun versus really in our best state where we can plan and make the best decision.
Sure, and you can make a case for we need to split out fire. first.
Correct, right,
And
yeah.
so that's.
And that's this, I think,
And
right? That's
there
that.
are still hot embers. So, but as we are able to say, we put out that fire, we can strategically and are strategically planning. And then folks, Patricia, like yourself, will be intimately involved in, that process so that input informs our decision making. But again, we have the amount of land that we have, the city owns what it owns, and then you start to look at the availabilities of asphalt, and you need to do the kind of negotiations that I'm involved in right now.
Yeah, I guess ultimately, does it stunt the ability of what you can do downtown? Because you don't have, you're
Of course.
right
And I come
constrained
into this with grand
resources.
plans and schemes, and some of those that, while they haven't been, fully stopped in their tracks, they are certainly slowed down.
Yeah.
This is an obvious, connector to any other kind of successes.
All right, any other lingering questions anyone has?
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, no, we appreciate your time, and I think, this board would definitely appreciate once the vision is kind of settled on, is bringing, any materials you can provide us, again, or any support that we can help with that.
I'm happy to come anytime as well.
Okay.
That I personally have longed to have some engagement with. So certainly at the very least, anything that we have that's reportable, I'm happy to, and I'm sure Greg is as well. We're happy to kind of make that presentation for you and take whatever questions and then go back to the drawing board and be able to come back with. All right.
All right, great. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
She beats you up and then you hug her. Yeah, exactly. And Andrew, I mean, the one thing I do want to say, Andrew, from your role here and your role obviously with the council is my concern really is just it's more of a short term and not a long term. And if we don't have a second level,
No, I'm on the county.
oh, the
board.
county, so he's in the council,
Yeah.
that's where that, so you, the county's not getting involved at all on this.
And I don't want, I'm Cooper Sound and Town of Otsego.
Yeah, I was thinking this going to the county level. Yeah, he's like, no, I'm not.
No,
I'm not
I'm,
interested in this.
well,
I know.
well removed from it, but I will say that, we will, I don't know if Jody's got a call about this yet, but the airport, we definitely will be involved with that. So that will be a city issue and county issue, so it's not that we're not involved with the city, but, the parking garage has not come.
I think the county level.
Otsego County
I'm
government.
kind of surprised. From a funding. Okay,
So
so,
that it would be a tough sell.
yeah,
It would be a tough sell.
harder than the airport.
Harder than the airport. Yeah.
That's weird.
Short $3 a day.
Yeah, but that,
Short $3
No,
a day.
no, you don't know, he said 500 cars at $3, you don't know.
Each car is
per hour.
That's,
And I think for me, that's, and I don't know, again, where there's opportunity for this board to potentially influence or have a seat at the table to discuss really that strategic, right? Like, I mean, let's be honest, yeah, there's definitely a precedence for charging. And I think your summer baseball families are fine, right?
What market, Saratoga?
Well, compare Cooperstown, right? But that's summertime. That's just for the baseball, right? That's not the locals.
That's
When you look at the college kids, when you look at the people that are renting and living
We have
there.
paid parking. I mean, it's a pretty long season, but there are some alternatives, which the city, I think that, there's some passes that locals can buy that kind of exempt them from the hourly parking.
Right, and that's what is the vision for that? Like, how are they gonna cater to the group that's renting down? Hey, how are they gonna, what's the theory for locals? Because until you create an amazing experience down here, locals are not gonna come and pay.
So the all changes.
Yeah.
So
things open.
you have a reason, in that town for people to come.
Yeah, there's a draw.
There's a draw there. Here our experience is pretty crappy on Main Street.
No, there's not necessarily, like an anchor attraction. You don't have that.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I'm looking for, is like, how do we get clarity
Well,
on?
Just play with the debt service. So $500,000-$600,000 a year on a $10 million bond, just back into park and use whatever numbers you want, whatever cars you want, whatever charge per hour per day. I don't know where they came up with the math and think that's gonna work. It's gonna pay for a bond, but it's not.
Well, and the cost of money is going up every day in the city.
Yeah. We've done a lot of parking financings. We represent, for instance, the Albany Parking Authority, and we've done a lot of financings with the Airport Authority on their parking garages. Parking garages are very tough things to finance and involve a real, among other things, kind of a need to look at the issue as a whole. For instance, the city of Albany has parking meters, so they control street parking and they control parking garage parking. And that's all swept into a revenue stream that's used to pay debt service on, parking garages. So it's a very difficult issue. And typically the only ones that make money are the ones at airports because they've got a captive audience. And I will tell you that we're working on one in another jurisdiction where the small city there said, hey, we don't want to do parking because we're not competent. We don't want to get involved in it. And they foisted it on a developer in connection with the development of a downtown mixed use facility. And they assisted the developer in financing that through diversion of pilot payments. So, but it's a very, very complicated issue. And a lot of them, Jeff, you're right on the right, I think, road there. I mean, it's a lot of numbers crunching.
Yeah.
This is the typical situation where these guys are scrambling based on what wasn't done over the last 15 years.
Yeah.
And I brought that up because, again, we have this thorough engineering study, what did they say, last year or just recently, which required that they close this garage down, based on the fact that it was going to be 50 years old, right? I go back to the artist loft and I go back to Richard's project. There was an assumption that the parking garage is going to be a major part.
It was
of those
more
two
than,
projects.
it was more than an
The
assumption.
problem was, there
More
was
than an
no,
assumption.
there was really no reason to believe that that garage was going to be available for an extended period of time. But back in that time period, that was when the city should, and these people, Mark wasn't even there yet. The city should have done an extensive,
Extensive
and,
study.
you know, that's not wickedly expensive to have those guys come in, and they know how to check, you know, concrete in case I-beams, and it wasn't done. And so now these guys find themselves in this incredible mess, and as you said, they're scrambling to figure out how they can afford to do anything. And that's, you know, my experience in schools tells me the general public is not too keen on wanting to understand or being able to understand some of the financial issues that go into these things. What a mess. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't really know how we can contribute in any way, but Jody, I would definitely challenge you to think, is there any opportunity that you would see in terms of how we could, I'm saying not give money, but like how we could, is there a creative way, or it doesn't sound like there is. Is it drawing a developer? Could we be trying to
If we made it part of
a multi-use
development
project? Yeah.
With the forethought, maybe there could be a way, but
Yeah.
who's developing what?
I know, yeah, I've been. So I think we've got what we've got at this point in time.
I do think it's.
And that was very gracious, by the way, to have the public access your building to get up to Main Street in that project.
Yes,
But I get the benefit.
it's been, and it's, they have a right of way. They have a right of way through the building. And my concern is they're just not thinking more broadly. I mean, meeting with the architects, we looked at that. That structure is terrible.
Why would they not
It's
jump?
ugly.
Why would they not just say yes to that? Oh, yes.
Yeah.
do that.
But
You mean the walkway, is that what you got?
Yeah.
yes, the walkway.
The walkway will be the walkway to nowhere, so it's,
But they're gonna have to maintain the staircase, right? And then apparently what's talking about is an elevator.
There's going to be an interior elevator that will be accessible to the public from that base Water Street up to Main Street. Why would we need an?
I think that.
Why have a second elevator when you've got an interior elevator that,
That's gonna be to the lower level.
No, the elevator, right, that's all they're talking. It's talking about an elevator that.
No,
you're right,
They're keeping the.
They're keeping the whole thing.
They're keeping
Yeah.
the whole thing.
They want an elevator to go up and
But
continue.
you know, with that,
Access the walkway.
yes. And the stairwell.
The walkway is beautiful.
It's
Certainly
a place where you go.
See, I didn't understand that was actually
yeah,
part of it.
no.
I thought
No,
the demo was gonna include,
No, they're going to keep that in the hopes of somebody else then
Wanting
attaching it
to develop
to
and
that, which is, it's just.
yeah,
not gonna
the
happen.
key is they have
Is that, and
elevator
again,
that
I
goes
have
from
spent
Market
more
Street
time
parking
looking
level
at it
up to Water.
than I want to.
That they mentioned.
That was closed down. It's a terrible.
Just in
thing.
case you woken up in Oz, you go down through the stairwell, it'll shock you back to reality.
All right, good conversation.
Yeah, and if it was that, I would say.
We're ready.
Yeah.
And Patricia has to leave, so.
Sometimes non-action is a big thing.
Who's the strategic committee that they got together? Because there's not a single business person I know that was ever involved in a conversation that's stuck. It's just. That's what.
It's a parking lot. Does anyone know if the parking lot behind Verzee, is that city owned?
No, I think
No,
that's it.
That's private, okay.
And is the parking lot, what about the parking lot?
That's
NBC Bank.
That's for their
For the
apartments, yeah.
school.
Yeah.
And for
What about the
business.
D slot with the new apartments? Is that owned by the
That's
developer?
the city.
That's the city.
Yeah, the parking lot around is.
Some lots belong, some parking spaces belong to the lot.
Oh, some.
Some of them belong to the loss and the others still retain the city.
And contrary to what the mayor said, I mean, Michelle and I both, we've driven around.
It seemed like that's what they
It's
were,
not.
they were getting at, but yeah, that was a lot.
It's a problem. It's a huge problem. But that's gonna be a big change if they don't exceed.
But you're,
I don't know what's going to do. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
I mean,
Do you want to buy a parking lot? You want to put a two-story parking garage?
no, I don't like to just go parking garage.
you
Yeah.
It's another revenue stream.
You can put apartments above it.
just take his model and you make them.
Trish, I want you to know that I bought a Powerball ticket, and if I won, I was gonna build a parking garage for you. Unfortunately, yeah, as Jeff said, that might be the same finance.
We'll figure something out. We'll figure something out. We have no
Make it
doubt of it, but it's.
But it does stunt future, right? And
And
it stunts future.
it wasn't just to make a speech
There is,
here, but
your question was not
People
answered.
don't
What is the
have that.
long-term view?
Yeah.
Exactly.
in my
Because,
town,
I mean, how many businesses right now, if you just give me numbers and statistics, how many businesses are actually open on Main Street? How many are closed?
Right.
What's the current, which is what they're figuring out right now,
We
the
just
current
don't-
need, demand, right? But if you're looking to grow and add initial 5 businesses, or what's the rental occupancy, right? And if you're looking to grow the rental occupancy, like ultimately, where does that lead you to a new demand? And that's, for me, that's the numbers I would love to see is,
So today you can shuttle everybody from the baseball park down here, shuttle them all.
like that's a
And-
temporary.
and after a while, well, they're gonna say, why am I going down there?
Hey, what's there?
What's there? And then
Exactly.
what's going on? Like,
I'm sorry, I gotta go, guys.
Yeah.
This was fun, great.
But that, you can talk about that for every
Gotta have a
population
vision.
base,
Yeah.
right? You know, and, yeah. All right, good stuff. We're gonna move to the approval of the meeting minutes.
Did we ever actually open the meeting to roll call?
Yeah. Oh, I didn't do roll call. I never do roll call. She can see.
She did the roll.
Megan can see who's
I
here.
missed it.
We had 4. Yeah, exactly.
Still have-
We still do. Yeah. And Jim did join us virtually if you didn't.
I did.
Any questions on the June 22nd meeting minutes?
No.
Now I take a motion.
I'll move.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Report of the Audit and Finance Committee.
Defer.
Meeting minutes. We don't do motions here for that. Nope. Bills and communications. Didn't look like there was anything out of the ordinary there. Any questions on those?
No.
Get a motion to pay.
So move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Report of the Projects Committee.
Okay, everybody got a copy of the minutes, our last meeting? Any questions? Any report you want to enrich us on, Jody?
Yeah.
Anything new at Ridgefield Springs?
We're gonna discuss that.
Executive?
No, actually, we do not have to go in executive session, but what has transpired is that we did get a proposal back from the town attorney on the memorandum of agreements. And I believe, Joe, you would like to call a special discussion for next week with attorney privilege coverage.
Well, Jody, I think what you, Kurt, and I discussed yesterday is that given that the town approximately a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, adopted a resolution, which I have not seen, but which indicates that they're willing to move forward with this matter, subject to, review and finalization of documents, that we have some level of momentum now. The draft agreement that I got from the town attorney, however, imposes a significant number of requirements on the IDA that candidly I wasn't expecting. And then as we discussed between, you and I, there are a series of other issues relating to construction, seeker, the federal funding. And I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page with respect to, does the IDA really want to move forward on this under these conditions, with some level of exposure by way of fees and costs? And what I wanted to do was just get a a full read from all the board members to make sure that everyone is on the same page with respect to your continuing your efforts to push this thing along.
So
And then I'm sorry, as part of that discussion that we had yesterday, Jody, you outlined for me and Kurt a series of issues that are unrelated to the town attorney's comments on the draft agreements, which which fully describe some of these issues. And what I thought would be helpful is we have a call, and you can do this by conference call, Zoom, go to whatever medium you want, and it would be under the auspices of attorney-client discussion, which is not an open meeting issue. So there's no open meeting issue, and what we can do is have a frank discussion on what the upsides are and the downsides are of continuing your frankly significant efforts in trying to get this thing done.
And I would propose that prior to that call, that we get a summary, executive summary document that tells us, the two pieces, the letter you received with conditions, and then the other issues that you've outlined that we need to discuss prior to the meeting.
And that's more than fair, Jeff, because it'll force me to isolate those on a piece of paper. So that's absolutely, that's a good suggestion.
Great. Very good.
What are we looking at?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, it's easier if it's virtual, right? For you guys?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
on
yeah.
vacation.
Yeah,
It's gonna be too much for me.
Okay.
I mean, it would seem to make sense if you guys wanted to keep it on the Thursday, but, and you're not, Jim is on Thursday,
Are you
everything,
available next Thursday?
Patricia.
I'm traveling Thursday, but that's okay. You guys can do without me.
Well, if we get half the board members not there, then
It's
we're not-
worth it.
It's worth going to Omaha, so I don't think I'll be there.
Should we?
Is time an issue, Joe? Is there a time limit here?
Well, I guess that depends on who you talk to, frankly. I'm sorry to be flippant. I think I would prefer to have as many board members on the call as possible, because there has been a significant amount of effort done over a significant period of time. And I think it would be helpful for everybody to be on the call. I would prefer something Wednesday on, because that would give me time to do what you're suggesting, Jeff, which I think, like I said, is a very good idea. So I can certainly get something out to people Monday or Tuesday, bullet points.
It sounds like two board members are not available we're gonna at least be down to maybe more next week.
I could figure something out Friday next week would be the earliest I could do something.
The earliest you can?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't. I'll be,
You'll be,
well, actually, probably Friday I could zoom in.
Yeah.
I'll be in a hotel by then.
I can send out emails to the board members who aren't here for Friday.
How would you look, Joe, for next Friday?
again, in Zoom,
The
so I
fourth?
don't have to travel.
Friday, I'm wide open. And if we need to slip to Monday, the 7th, we could do it on Monday, the 7th, or Tuesday, the 8th.
Let's do Friday.
Yeah.
Monday gets really
Friday
jammed up
works.
for me. Friday would be the best day.
Let's shoot for Friday.
Craig can join in, because Craig's gonna balance.
We'll send out the emails to them and make sure they can come and tell them that it's
Yeah,
virtual.
it's really short. Yeah, I can call and say,
Yeah, you guys talk to Craig.
you got 2 minutes.
Yeah, Friday.
Friday's good.
Is there a time that you guys like?
8:30 would work best for me, but I can make 8 o'clock work if that's
8:30 's fine
the
with me.
best time.
8:30?
8:30 is fine.
Does that work? Are you at a conference or something, Tom, that you're?
Yeah, I can.
8:30 is great for Joe Scott.
So there's no notice or anything, we don't need to tell the public anything, it's just, okay, all
Right.
right. Just making
This
sure.
is just like we're meeting Joe in his office.
Right, okay.
Exactly.
All right, so we'll shoot for 8:30. Hope Patricia and Mika can make it. Okay. I guess the question is there a showstopper if those two are unable to, or one of the two is unable to? We can,
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. we have 5 of us. Plus-
Jim, are you available? 8:30?
Yes, that would work.
Okay, so I feel like that's probably a good chunk,
Yep.
given all our schedules. Hopefully those two can join in, okay. And if not, they'll at least get the documentation
Yeah, beforehand, we'll get to read it.
beforehand, and perhaps they can provide you, Megan, or Jody with kind of their feelings or thoughts. If
So
they're-
Joe will have one, and then I guess, because Jody has his own issues too, so maybe Jody can outline those. on
Yeah,
his own, and we'll send both.
Well, you let them coordinate, then you put it on one
Yeah.
document.
okay,
Next Friday.
you'll send out a meeting invite, okay.
Laundry list of shoes.
And don't be pessimistic, Jody, just be realistic.
That's all,
If
that's
we
all.
solve the problem, don't put it on the list.
Yeah.
I found the solution to starting construction this month, so.
See? So don't put it on the list.
Does it involve a hitman?
No, it involves actually
That's not good.
an engineer at the Economic Development Administration in Philadelphia gave me an out on how to start construction.
Right, well, we may not want to.
We may
if
not
we're
want to.
gonna go forward.
Hey,
A little overdone.
Anyway, we're in projects committee still.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
So,
Just so everybody's aware, we did contact 4 firms, engineering firms.
So I guess, what, are we done with the report to the project committee?
Yes.
Is there anything else on the
I was
project?
asking that before we moved.
I think you're going into the new and unfinished business.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was asking still about project.
Well,
We don't-
this is still really projects as well, because we discussed this project, so.
Okay,
Okay,
which we gonna do? Okay, go ahead.
So we received 4 proposals from engineering firms to do a phase 1 environmental audit. I'm recommending and to hire Barton LaJudas at $3,200 and plus another $400 for what they call a environmental lien report done by a title firm on the property, which is a little bit more than the other firms have asked for. They are the second cheapest of the 4 proposals we received. I'm concerned with Keystone in the sense that they do have a provision in there that if anything that they're not responsible for slows down the project, they have a right to renegotiate it at a higher price, which could mean something like they foiled DEC
Yeah.
and haven't gotten back to them. So that's the reason I'm not recommending them. Also, I did not see in Keystone's proposal a reliance letter that actually guarantees the work that they've done, which the other 3 firms have.
but you're saying Barton and Judith will only issue that to the IDA?
Yeah.
So that seems to be a slight difference, or is there any concern with that?
I'm going to reach out to them and tell them how we're going to use it and that we need to be able to just have other firms that are interested in purchasing. the building.
Okay,
So I'm fine with that. The question here is, this is on the Commerce Drive property, right?
Yes.
It's just, I don't know the necessity for the environmental lien. Because when a title policy, the search is done to support a policy, if you're gonna transfer, any lien would show up. But just, that may be something new that
Otherwise,
I
we'll just do 3,200.
makes sense.
Yes. So that's all I have.
okay,
Anything else? We adjourn our projects committee, or no, it's just a report, right?
Yeah.
Next.
so we hit the new and unfinished business. Is there anything else? Public comment? We've lost all our public. Executive session? Now I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Oh,
All right. Move into the CRC. Would you like to take roll call?
Joe Robinson.
Here.
David Riley.
here.
Jeff Lord.
Here.
Tom Romeo.
here.
Craig Gosman is absent. Patricia Kennedy is absent. Andrew Marietta.
Here.
And Jim Seward
Here.
is.
Forego the chairman's remarks and move into the approval of the meeting minutes from June 22nd. Are there any comments or questions there? Now I'll take a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Any new and unfinished business here? Do we need executive session? Now I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.